This is our fourth principle in turning our whys into worship. In Psalm 77, as we meditate on the 6 questions that the anguished psalmist cried out to God, questioning God in a time of trouble, being overwhelmed. But he remembered the past mercies of the Lord and was brought back to faith. The fourth principle is this: do not make a part more important than the whole. Don't take one piece of the puzzle, and that's all you see, and assume it's the full story. It's the end of the story. You're just reading one paragraph in one chapter when there's many chapters in the book that God is writing about you. So don't make one part more important than the whole. In other words, don't make the temporal and that which you see with your eyes and feel with your hands to be more important than the eternal. God is looking at the perspective of what he is accomplishing through your life for eternity. We can only see today what God sees, what he's accomplishing through the trial of faith that you're going through. God holds up Job as an illustration of that very truth, not making a part more important than the whole. Job could only see today. He had the part. God allowed Satan to attack him. And when Satan attacked Job, he lost his cattle, his sheep. He lost his 10 children. He lost it all. And then he lost his health. Satan attacked his body. Suffering the loss of everything, the pain of everything, you can see how Job could take the part. Now we know the last chapter of the book of Job. Job didn't know the last chapter. He only had the part. But in the midst of all of this, he would say, though the Lord slay me, yet will I trust him. God allowed his wife to live, but his wife was used by Satan to even tempt him even further. His wife would say, curse God and die. That's exactly what Satan wanted Job to do. And that's what Satan wants you to do in the midst of your suffering. You may have lost a loved one. You may be going through terrible health issues, and it's Satan's desire to have you question God. Just like he had Eve began by questioning God. And he wants you ultimately not to worship God, not to be grateful to God, not to grow in faith, but to wither on the vine and not bear fruit. But what was the end of the Lord? Well, we look through all the chapters of the book of Job. It comes to this summation. And it says in Job 45:12, now the Lord blessed the latter days of Job more than his beginning. And then it began to list the doubling of everything he lost. He had 7,000 sheep. Now he has 14,000. He had 3,000 camels. Now he has 6,000. He had a 500 yoke of oxen. Now he has 1,000. He had 500 female donkeys. Now he has 1,000. And you know what God did? Even his wife and him had more children. He would have 10 children. He lost 10. He now gives birth to 10. And then verse 16 says this: after this, Job lived 140 years longer and saw his children and grandchildren for 4 generations. Now you see, our principle, don't judge the whole by one part. If we are to turn our whys into worship, know that there's another chapter in your life. And it's going to be a chapter where God multiplies his blessings. Remember, God is looking at eternity. Paul would say this in Romans 8:18. I reckon that the suffering of today, this present time, the part, is not worthy to be compared with the whole, the glory that shall be revealed in us. And then James reminds us of Job. And he says that we are to remember those who are examples to us and the suffering of patience. We count them blessed who endured. You have heard of the perseverance of Job. This is James 5:11. And have seen the end of the Lord, the intended end of the Lord, that the Lord is very compassionate and merciful. Child of God, in that dark night that you feel overwhelmed, When you want to question God, even angry at God, remember you're only holding one day in your hand, 1 week in your hand. No matter how long the trial is, you only have the part. God sees the last chapter, and the last chapter fits into God's overall plan of glory and blessing for you. What is 70 years compared to 70 trillion years? Well, it's just a speck. We're going to spend eternity with the Lord. So turn your whys into worship. Don't make the part more important than the whole. Don't make the temporal more important than the eternal. Turn your whys into worship.